Hello and welcome, my name is Parky, and today we're doing another Let's Create in Spore. This time we're going to be taking a look at one of my personal favourite Pokemon, which is Parasect, weirdly enough. So anyway, we're going to get straight on with it. Parasect is a bug Pokemon. It's the one that is the evolved form of, is it Para something? It's been far too long since I've done any form of Pokemoning, so I can't really remember exactly what goes on. But anyway, it's one of my favourites, and we're going to go with the nice main body shape first of all, which is kind of like a pointed sort of mushroom cap almost. So we're going to make this slightly bigger here. We want a really wide base, something like this. Now I suppose the main question I really have with this build is exactly how we're going to do it. What I was just saying was I was going to make this into the shell, but I'm now questioning whether there's a better way of doing it, because basically Parasect is constructed of two major parts. We've got the sort of like underbelly, where it's kind of thin, like a few little blobs all attached to each other, so I'd say something more like this was good. Okay, so I flipped around the spine so we can work with this a little bit easier. So I'm thinking we're going to need it slightly longer, because it has got a little bit of structure on the inside. And at the back it's slightly fatter if we just move the spine up slightly like this. And then it's going to continue that sort of fatness until it gets to the face area. Now the face area is going to have an additional blob on it, which is going to be slightly separate to the rest of the body. So if we do something like this and then try and bring it down like so. Yeah, I think this is a structure that we can work with. Now at this point in time this is going to look very strange, so let's just go with the arms next. Now the arms, or legs I guess you could call them, there's sort of like three sets. It being an insect and all, it has 6 legs in total. So let's go for... Actually, I suppose this time we could actually go for feet, couldn't we? Surprisingly. So let's go for the Ostripath ones. Just because they've got additional joints, we're going to get rid of these feet like this, and we're going to make these as thin as possible, and then make them a bit fatter at the joints here, and then a little bit thinner everywhere else. Of course, one thing that I can do to actually make this feel a bit more like we actually know what's going on is change the colour of it, just so that we can sort of envisage even more exactly what we're going for here. So these legs are going to be attached up here primarily, and they've got sort of a small joint here, followed by another one that goes up like this, and then another one that sort of goes down, something like this. Now unfortunately it's going to be difficult for us to get the pointed ends. One thing that we could possibly try is going for one of these spikes, but I'm not sure how well they're actually going to merge in, because they're not spikes as such on his body. Of course what we could do is replace this little joint here, making these a little bit thinner, with one that looks a bit more sort of insectoid, just have a spike going down as the end of his feet in general anyway. So something like this. Now it doesn't look perfect, but I think it's pretty close, so we'll stick with this for now. I might just move this in slightly and then rotate outwards, just to bring the gait of the legs slightly in. So then we're going to copy these legs for the other two sets at the back. So then, aside from this, we've only got one more of these sets of legs that we need to deal with. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the angle of these slightly, so it looks a bit more spider-like underneath. Something like that. Okay, this is going to come together, so bear with. So what I think we're going to do next is the eyes. Now he's got two very simple eyes, which are going to be pretty much these. And that is almost perfect, aside from the colour, but that's all the details on his face. And then he's got the two front sets of sort of arm legs, which I'm going to use arms for this time, because I think they're going to suit slightly better. And they're the ones with the big claws on. Now which one of these do we think would look best? I'm not sure, maybe this one, the Cutty? The Cutty would be good. We're obviously going to get rid of these hands, and then we want to make these as small as possible once again, because generally insects don't have very beefcake arms, which does make sense. So we're going to have these coming out the side, something like this, with shortened stumps here ready for the claws to be added on. Now what I might do is I might move these legs back slightly so that we've got a bit more room, and I think that looks about right. So let's now find some claw hands that would look good here. I think the ones perfect for the job this time would be the butter bips, which are pretty much custom made already to look like crab claws, which is good for us. And we're going to make these really big, because one of the major features on this Pokemon is its claws. And if we can, we're going to move them down. Something like this. And actually I think looking at this now proportionately, make them a bit smaller, and we'll bring them in slightly like this, and then rotate them in If we can we actually rotate these anymore? Doesn't really look like it, but what I am going to do is I am going to rotate them slightly like this to make up for it. And we're going to have to make the legs slightly bigger, because I think they're not really in proportion at this point in time. And we'll go for something like that. Perfect. Right, so let's now find his shell. I think this is going to be the difficult part of the build, unfortunately. But I'm sure there's something in there that we can use. Maybe something in this menu. Oh yeah, look at this! I found something that would do the job. So we can't make this much bigger, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine it with several other items in this build, just to make it look like he's got a bit of a bigger shell going on. So we're going to have this in the middle, something like this. We'll rotate it around a little bit, and then we need sort of like a wider bottom bit that will cover up the rest of his body. Okay, and I think this kneecap thing is going to do the job pretty nicely. And actually I'm wondering whether this kneecap would actually cover the entire body quite satisfactorily. Let's just get rid of this. We're going to do a bit of experimenting. So we're going to put this down here like this. And if we rotate it upwards, what does this look like? It's pretty damn cool. It's pretty much there, actually. And I'm wondering if we just rotate it slightly like this. Does that look about right? That does, actually, doesn't it? Maybe if we make it even bigger slightly. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, can we make it any wider? No, don't need to. Right then. Wow, that went surprisingly well. So next up, I think what we're going to do is, I'm not really sure about the shape of this head. I think, again, there's only so much you can do with these heads. But is there some other way that we could recreate this? In reality, this Pokemon's head is more of an ellipse shape rather than like a perfect sphere. So I'm just wondering whether there's anything that we can really do to achieve that look. And in fact, I might just make these arms slightly smaller and then rotate these claws around and then down like this, but then make them slightly bigger as well. Again, rotating them forwards. Okay, I can see it. And we'll make these a little bit smaller. Yeah. Now let's just go straight into the colouring menu, because I think this is where it's really going to come to life. So the base colour, I think this is a pretty good orange, if I'm honest. We can change the coat detail though, because maybe if we can get some details on here. The problem is I'm not sure whether these kneecaps are really affected by these details. It might be the case that they're not. In which case, I suppose we could even go for these dots here, couldn't we? How does this look? That looks vaguely like it. Maybe these ones instead? No, okay, maybe not. Let's see what other coat details that we've got in here. We're basically looking for something with dots on it. Maybe this one. Ah, yeah, I like that. Okay, so we're going to make this a yellow colour so that it stands out a little bit more, because the details of this guy, the Parasect, are in yellow. Now, his shell in reality is also in bright red, so I'm wondering whether we can change that in this detail menu here. Doesn't look like it, but, you know, that's pretty close. And actually, that's the change... And actually, that's changing the colour of the eyes slightly, so maybe we can make this white instead. Actually, I preferred it when it was red. Okay. Yes, I can see the resemblance here. I mean, it's obviously not perfect, but it's pretty damn close. So let's just call him Parasect, and obviously, he's the loveliest of all bug Pokemon. Now, admittedly, if I could change one thing in Spore, it'd be that you could specify exactly which body parts were what colours, like you can in the vehicle or building creator. But unfortunately with the creature stage, for some reason they restrict it so you can't do that. So what I would like to change if I could do is make this shell bright red with the yellow dots on there as it is, and then change the colour of his eyes to white. But with that in mind, I still think we're pretty damn close. So let's take him on a test drive. Here's our Parasect. Oh, I love the arm pumping movements. Brilliant. His legs don't really move that much. He's got a bit of a sliding motion going on, but to be honest, it's not too bad. I think it resembles it enough, let's put it that way. I'd actually quite like to try out a lot more Pokemon in the Let's Create series, just because, well, first of all, I'm a massive fan of Pokemon, because I'm a massive nerd, and also because I think Spore provides the tools that you actually could use to create a lot of these Pokemon fairly accurately. Disco Crab. Well, this seems like a good place to leave today's episode. If you enjoyed the build and think that we've succeeded in our plight, then please feel free to leave your support in the comment section below, also leave ratings, and leave your suggestions for maybe some more Pokemon that I can build next time, because I'm feeling in the mood for Pokemon at the moment. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, awkward, goodbye. Awkward.